Je passe la parole à Alexa.
Alexa a déjà parlé, merci beaucoup. Euh, Pas de problème, je vais gérer. Et est-ce que je viens de voir un autre Equal Health. Who is the other Equal Health?
Oh, it's me on my phone, Carlo.
Okay, sorry.
I had to do it recording.
Yeah, I understand. No problem. Okay, so we're calling on Jack.
On me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Doc Sachs, physician in California, co-founder of Equal Health. It's very nice to be here with all of you for this final planned session of the webinar. We're very appreciative that all of you have taken this time to do this with us. We wanted to all do it in person, but unfortunately that couldn't happen this year. But hopefully we feel like these 6 sessions are the beginning of a lifelong process of learning and engaging in this material. So I'm a +2 today, and I'm very excited to spend the next couple hours with you discussing some more concepts. So
very good.
That's everybody, right, Carlo?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can start.
All right. So like I said, in the next 2 hours, we're going to discuss some more concepts in social medicine. And we're also going to take a big dive into the post-earthquake history of Haiti as a case study and as an illustration of a number of principles that play out in the field of international aid. I apologize for my lack of French, but all of the slides are in French, so hopefully there will be enough comprehension both ways. And please stop me. Please express yourself in the chat if you have any questions or concerns about anything. Okay. So we're going to fairly quickly move through 2 talks that I usually give in the course that usually take a total of 3 hours, but we're going to do them in just over an hour and a half. So we're going to move quickly, but as I said, please stop me if you have any questions. So we have spent the time so far in this course, in this brief webinar, really looking at some topics in social medicine and some applications, looking at the examples of Chicago, etc. As I said, we're going to deal a little bit more specifically with Haiti today, in part because the course has always had a home in Haiti, and in part because the history of Haiti really illustrates a lot of the concepts that are fundamental to social medicine. So one of the concepts that we've discussed so far that Michelle visited in her talk on day 1 is this idea of praxis. Does anyone remember what is meant by praxis?
Est-ce que vous vous rappelez au moins de ce que signifie le concept praxis? Est-ce que vous vous rappelez de la signification du concept praxis?
Praxis, c'est la combinaison de la théorie et l'action. So it's theory and action together. That's my understanding.
Thank you, Elise.
That's it.
If you all remember, this concept of praxis comes from the great thinker Paulo Freire, who wrote the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And as you said, Elise, praxis is action that is rooted in reflection. Okay. Another way of putting this is through the methodology of liberation theology. They like to say that the process should be to observe, to reflect, and then to act. So the idea is that we are gathering skills, we're gathering observations, we are gathering analytical tools so that we can more effectively act on the world around us. Okay, so in the course, what we usually do is after the first week of really learning about social medicine, we spend the second week using these tools to analyze interventions in the world around us, to look at ways that different people and organizations and countries have engaged in around the world, supposedly to relieve the suffering of others. Okay, that's the idea. And often, for many reasons that we'll talk about, the consequences of that may be very problematic. Okay, and sometimes are intentional, sometimes not. So we're going to look at the example of Haiti as far as how that might play out. In this first session, as we talk about an analytical framework for global health interventions, we're going to do that. We're going to just briefly talk about who are some of the actors involved in global health. And then we're going to familiarize ourselves with what might be called a couple of philosophical bases for action. Okay. So let's start by acknowledging the truth that there is a staggering, an incredible amount of inequality and injustice in the world. And so when we read a statistic like this, that in 2017, 2.1 billion people did not have access to clean water at home, that's the sort of thing that for many of us can lead to an emotional response. You know, how can it be that in 2017, over 2 billion people still lack access to clean water? And because it can cause an emotional response, historically, it has led many people and organizations to rush in with a quick solution. And you saw this picture on day one, but the history of international aid is full of countless failed water interventions, okay? With good intentions, but very little real progress to show for them. So during the course, we use the following framework to ask ourselves, why does an organization's intervention work or not work? Okay, and what is this intervention really rooted in? We'll just go through this quickly. Unfortunately, we don't have the chance to all be together and apply this right now, but you can use this framework yourself as you go through go through the world to analyze.
I'm sorry, Z. I'm sorry, Doc.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Raima is joining us now and is gonna help with the translation.
Excellent.
Okay. So can you repeat the questions again?
Yes. So I will bring them out now. But these 6 questions are useful ones to ask yourself as you analyze an intervention in the future. So the first one is, where is the motivation? The second is, what is the philosophical basis for action? Is it charity? Is it social justice? Those are 2 of the philosophical bases that we'll talk about. Third is, how long is this going to last? Fourth is, who is going to do it? Who's actually performing the work? Fifth is, who has the responsibility for the work and its outcome? And that may be different from the people that are actually doing the work. And sixth is, where does the money come from? Okay, so let's just talk about one of these questions for a moment. So when it comes to who is doing the work, and the related question of who should be doing the work, right? We need to understand, like, who are the what are the general types of actors that might be involved in an intervention in the world of international aid. And if you were able to read the article by Zaidi that was assigned for today, that discusses a couple of the types. So what are some of the possible actors when it comes to international aid and global health?
Dernier, tu gères le téléphone pour moi. Dans le micro. Dernier, le micro, s'il te plaît.
Et le micro est éteint?
Non, c'est pas éteint. On ne peut pas continuer avec toi, dernier. On ne peut pas continuer. Ok, merci. C'est pas éteint. Can you put everyone everyone on mute?
Well, if you have not had a chance to read the article by Zaidi, I highly recommend it, because it does a very nice job of contrasting the roles, the appropriate roles of 2 different types of actors. Okay. So NGOs, or les ONG, okay, which are organizations that are nominally separate from the governments of the countries that they come from. Okay. There's the government, right? Like public sector, the state, or other ways that might be described. And then the private sector. Okay. So can anyone give a couple example of les ONG? What are some examples?
Est-ce qu'on peut avoir quelques exemples d'ONG en Haïti? Larissa, Ronaldo, Erdine, Catherine. Exemple d'ONG. Equal Health est un ONG.
On a la World Vision.
World Vision.
Mm-hmm.
Bon, on a une ONG alors qui sont en partenariat comme c'est avec les hôpitaux publics. Comme par exemple, bon, je ne sais pas si bon, on a déjà dit quoi l'œuf, mais je ne sais pas si Carlos, la santé, c'est un ranger. Allô?
Oui, c'est un bon exemple.
Okay.
Yes. So Zamila Santé is is an excellent example. The Red Cross, okay, Médecins Sans Frontières, many examples. As we'll talk about, actually, there are maybe more NGOs working in Haiti than in any other country in the world. What about the government? What are some services that the government might provide? What's an example of that? So in Haiti, an example might be EDH, right? The state electrical service. Right? There are many other examples of services that the government can provide. And then the private sector would be businesses that are trying to make a profit, but which might still be involved in an aid development project. Okay, so an example of that might be Marriott Hotels and Digicel working together and building a very expensive hotel in Port-au-Prince. Okay, so normally in class, we take some time to really deeply analyze these different types of actors and the strengths and the weaknesses. But the point that I really hope you all take home, and the point that really comes from the article by Zaidi, is that really of these three, only one of the three, only the state, only the government can really convey a right to its people. Okay, so if you believe that health is really a human right, it's ultimately up to the government of a country to provide it to its people. Okay. Another important point is that ultimately NGOs and the private sector, who are they most accountable to? Are NGOs and the private sector, are they accountable to the people that they are serving? Right, who are they accountable to?
In the private sector, it's often the investors, the stakeholders who have the most influence over, who keep everyone accountable in that setting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joy. How about NGOs? Who are they most accountable to?
They're funders.
Thank you, Elise. The article, which I really recommend, does a nice job of getting into that. So yes, ultimately there are many other forces acting on NGOs that can make it difficult for them to prioritize the services that they say they are providing. Okay, we're going to look in depth in a little bit at how that has functioned in Haiti. Okay. So what about philosophical bases? I mentioned this phrase before. Really, the idea is that as organizations, as people act in the lives of others out in the world, it's important to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Okay. Two people may act, may both want to relieve the suffering of someone else, but they may have very different philosophical bases for doing that. And in particular, the distinction I want to talk about is that between charity and social justice as a basis for action. Okay, so what does charity mean to you? How do we define charity?
Hello?
Yes. So I think we all have some understanding of what charity means.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Oui, Catherine.
Oui.
C'est extrêmement difficile de t'entendre. Est-ce que tu peux taper de préférence?
D'accord, pas de problème.
Okay. Sounds like there's a connection problem. I'm just going to say that, I think for most of us, we understand charity as where someone who has something shares it with someone who doesn't, right? And emphasis, and I will say, charity is in many ways a good thing, right? All of the major world religions have charity as a virtue, right? We're not saying that charity is inherently bad, right? But there are some problems with charity. Okay, certainly in healthcare, there was always a role for charity providers of healthcare, right? So hospitals or organizations that can take care of people when there is an acute need, right? People who don't have resources, all right? But is that really enough? And many commentators, including Paulo Freire, Paul Farmer, many others, have critiqued the concept of charity. So the one reason is that charity tends to, the most charity happens where inequality is the greatest, okay? Where there's the biggest difference between those who have and those who don't have. Another critique of charity is that, and I think we've all seen this, that often goods that are given as charity, they might be used, they might be rejected. There are things that the giver doesn't think are good enough for them, but they think they're good enough for the recipient. Okay, and the third critique that I would bring to you of charity is that who are we talking about? Who are we focusing on when we talk about charity? Right? We're talking about the giver, right? We're talking about the person who's engaging in the charitable act, right? But what's lost in all of this is, what about the dignity of the recipient? Okay, and what about an analysis that asks why? Why are things this way? Why is there so much inequality? Why is there such a need for charity to begin with? Okay, all of that is very often lost when a charitable approach is taken. Are there any questions about that? Is that clear?
Je ne reçois pas assez d'interactions aujourd'hui. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a, chers amis? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Il n'y a pas assez d'interactions. Est-ce que vous comprenez les questions? Vous ne faites pas de suggestions, vous ne posez pas de questions. Est-ce que c'est clair jusqu'à présent? Si c'est clair, est-ce que je peux avoir un thumbs up? Merci beaucoup, Joy. Est-ce que c'est clair pour les autres? Merci, Élise. Merci, Larissa. Et ceux et celles qui ne sont pas sur vidéo, s'il vous plaît, je veux que vous puissiez interagir avec le présentateur. Ça va plus ou moins faciliter les choses. OK? Zi.
Okay. Merci, Carla.
I guess I have a quick comment, I guess, or just question.
Yeah.
I can say it in French, or try to say it in French after, but I've heard people respond to the criticism of charity by saying that, you know, the classic argument that something is better than nothing, in terms of giving resources or material goods or services. So I'm kind of curious how this critique would respond to that, like the idea that, you know, something is better than nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do others have any thoughts about that question? So the you know, another sort of critique that's been leveled at social justice, which we'll talk about in a second, is that it's very good at critiquing charity and critiquing other philosophical bases, but doesn't always provide something actionable that you can do in the moment. So I think what's important to understand about these philosophical bases is that it's not all, you know, as we go through life, we can never be all one or all the other. It's really about the combination of these perspectives. And really, more than anything, absolutely, I think in many realms of life, charity is very appropriate and a very good thing. That it's depending on the situation, it may very well be better to share something. What's important is that you're also critiquing.
I'm sorry, Z. I'm sorry. Ronaldo Bernier. Merci.
Okay. What's important is that we're actively looking at the underlying condition and doing an analysis of the situation as
Ronaldo.
Oui.
Tu dois essayer de nous aider à gérer le son.
Okay.
Laissez ça sur mute, s'il te plaît. Merci. Sorry, Z.
No. So,
Oh my gosh.
just to provide another way of looking at things, and really this social
Sorry,
justice,
Elise. Sorry, everyone.
the social justice lens is what we use more than anything in this course. As I said, it's, you know, we put it forth as a necessary tool as really effectively tackle these problems in the world. So what the social justice approach, which has again been written about by Paulo Freire, Paul Farmer, and many others, is the idea that when you can also look at the situation and ask yourself, okay, why is there so much inequality? Even as you engage in an act of giving, you also at the same time engage in efforts that try to change the system to make it more equitable. You go to the root causes of inequality because you consider them unacceptable. More than just looking at the end product. Analyze problems in a way that Paul Farmer has called geographically.
Ronaldo?
It's very difficult to hear you.
I'm sorry, guys. Ronaldo?
Is that better? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So Fernando also used this phrase in his talk a couple days ago. What does this mean to be geographically broad and historically deep? Okay, so there are two pieces of this, right? There's the geographically broad part, right? What that means is that in many cases, the same structural forces that are acting on people in Chicago are acting on people in Haiti, are acting on people around the world. Okay, the idea is that you can, rather than focusing on differences in cultures and things like that, like many do, instead we do a structural analysis and we focus on the forces that commonly act on populations all around the world, right? And we go historically deep, right? So what that means is that we go upstream. You guys remember the different levels, the different circles, right? The different types of factors that account for health. So we have to go deeper historically to the roots of the structural problems that are causing the inequality, the health disparities that we see today. Okay. And finally, what is a key part of the social justice approach is that it views health professionals as social change agents. Okay. So how might the difference between charity and social justice look for a healthcare professional, right? Well, you know, there could be a physician, for example, who usually only sees wealthy patients, right? Only patients that can pay a lot of money. But sometimes this physician decides that you know, as an act of charity, he or she wants to go see some people, go take care of people who cannot pay for a day. Okay. Now, that's an act of charity, right? But what would a social justice component look like? You know, social justice requires that that physician takes a look at the system and asks, well, this is a problem that some people can pay and others can't, that some people get access to healthcare and others can't. And that physician then becomes politically active, right? That physician engages in the fight for broader access to healthcare. Okay, so that's what a social justice approach would be, as opposed to charity. Is that example clear? Okay, so unfortunately, I don't think this cartoon translates well in French, but I think it really beautifully summarizes the difference between charity and social justice. Okay. Okay. So just to conclude this first part, it's not always easy to know the best way of doing things. We recognize that, and certainly at Equal Health, we are always asking ourselves, we're always critiquing the work that we do. We're always asking ourselves, you know, what is our basis for action? You know, what are the roots of the disparities of opportunities that we see, and you know, we work as an organization to come up with the right answer, and it's not always easy. But with hopefully with, you know, some exposure to these tools, we can all sort of begin to think critically about the work that we're engaging in. Any questions about any concepts that have come up in this first part of the discussion?
Est-ce que c'est clair pour vous cette première partie? Est-ce que ça va? Est-ce qu'il y a des concepts qu'il faudrait revoir, ou est-ce qu'il y a des choses qu'on devrait complètement vous expliquer à nouveau? S'il y a des questions, des suggestions. Merci un peu, Zadok, pour la première partie. Je pense qu'il était très clair, il était très bon. Joy, do you want to say something?
I mean, I'm kind of generally reflecting on it all. I don't know if I have any specific questions. I do kind of, the thing that comes to mind is we talked about how charity, with charity, the dignity of the recipient isn't necessarily maintained or kept in mind. I'd be curious what others think about in terms of like the social justice framework, if the dignity of the recipient is also kind of maintained and kept in mind. And I don't know, I think that fighting for others, even in a social justice framework, might also, I don't know, it's important to reflect in how we look at dignity from that perspective as well. So it's kind of, I guess, an open question or thought for the group.
Yeah. That's great. Any thoughts about that?
Quelqu'un d'autre? Quelqu'un d'autre? Larissa? Larissa? Tu n'as pas de questions, tu n'as pas de suggestions à faire?
Alors oui, c'est concernant la charité. Donc, forcément, alors c'est que je n'arrive pas à comprendre. C'est pas parce qu'on fait la charité, ok, donc qu'on est obligé de donner soit des choses expirées, ou bien des choses qui sont déjà usées, ou bien qui ne sont pas en état. Parce que moi, pour moi, déjà, bon, c'est un manque de respect à la, bon, quand même, à la, en fait, aux gens qui vont bénéficier de ça. Euh, Moi, je ne comprends pas comme si, pourquoi, comme si, bon, c'est pas parce qu'on donne la charité, donc c'est, alors c'est un peu froissé, ça m'a froissé lorsque j'ai lu ce slide-là, donc, bon, je ne comprends pas pourquoi, comme si on fait ça, est-ce que, comme si, au fond, c'est vraiment comme si pour aider les gens, parce que c'est pas parce qu'on aide qu'on donne des choses, en fait, qui sont qui met comme si en cause la dignité en fait de ces pays-là ou bien de ces gens-là qui en ont besoin.
Merci, Larissa. Rosna, tu en penses quoi? Rosna? Marc, est-ce que tu pourrais rester sur mute pour nous? Merci. Rosna?
Oui, je pense que Laïssa a raison. Le fait qu'on donne de l'aide ou quelque chose à quelqu'un, cela doit être quelque chose de... C'est pas quelque chose qu'on n'a pas voulu, qu'on n'a plus besoin, qu'on doit donner à la personne. Il faut donner des choses de valeur. En plus de ça, j'aimerais poser une question concernant un médecin qui avait l'habitude de voir des personnes capables de payer les frais médicaux. J'aimerais savoir si dans de tels cas, le médecin, un jour, il a vu un groupe de personnes ne pouvant pas payer les frais médicaux. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'il devrait faire puisqu'il lui aussi, il a des dépenses, il y a des charges à payer. Ben, s'il ne veut pas aider l'individu, il doit faire quoi? Prenons l'exemple que je vais prendre l'exemple, moi, je suis infirmière, je travaille et dans une clinique, je vois des patients qui n'ont pas la possibilité de payer les frais. Bien, je suis consciente de la situation, mais je ne peux pas les aider et le médecin ne veut pas collaborer en ce sens. Je dois faire quoi? Je suis censée faire quoi puisque je ne peux pas les aider?
Est-ce que je peux ajouter quelque chose
Essaie de changer de position, Catherine. Catherine, essaie de changer de position.
à ce que vous avez dit et à la ça aussi? Allô?
Ok, ok, tu peux parler maintenant, c'est mieux.
So the question.
Est-ce que
On te reçoit très mal, Catherine.
maintenant?
Non, Catherine, malheureusement. Malheureusement. Si tu peux taper la question, ça pourrait nous aider. Merci beaucoup. Élise, tu n'as pas de questions?
Yeah, I don't.
J'ai une question.
Okay, go ahead.
Vas-y, Élise.
Yeah,
Merci.
well, I don't necessarily have a question. I'm just sort of reflecting on like some of the examples that we've talked about, like a doctor volunteering with people who don't have the money to pay for healthcare versus acting on a political level. And for me, it seems like the best incarnation of praxis that we could have would be to be doing both things ideally, right? To be working maybe not in a charity paradigm, but in solidarity with a community, understanding their needs, and also at the high level, because if you're just doing one, I don't know that you're going to see meaningful change.
Yeah, that's. I think that yeah, that expresses the message of this talk beautifully. That it really is about both, and certainly the message is not that there is no role for charity care. It's not that that someone who that volunteering is bad. I mean, that's not the message. But the important part is that whatever we do, we're doing it in a thoughtful way that includes a social justice awareness of the bigger role that we can have in changing the system. And Joy, to your point, certainly just as one might disregard the dignity or the perspective of the recipient when they're engaging in a charitable relationship, it's also so important to make sure that the voices, that all voices have a space in the analysis, in the solution when it comes to a social justice approach. Certainly there's there are many well-meaning people who might just sit together in a room very far from the people that they want to help, and do their own historical analysis and think that they're going very deep without actually asking anyone who's from that place what their perspective is. So I think it's equally important to think about providing a voice, providing dignity when you do a social justice analysis as well.
Par rapport à l'intervention de Rosna tout à l'heure, je voulais dire quelque chose. Certaines situations ne révèlent pas de la charité, mais c'est de préférence une sorte de dilemme, Rosna. On parle de dilemme dans ce genre de situation. On a des besoins, on a des obligations, mais il y a ce conflit qui se crée entre nos valeurs, nos besoins et ce que nous vivons, qui nous gêne, qui nous pousse à vouloir prendre des décisions, mais la structure dans laquelle nous fonctionnons nous impose certaines règles donc, que nous devons obéir. Quoi faire? C'est vraiment par rapport aux analyses que nous allons pouvoir choisir quoi faire et quand les faire. OK? C'est pas vraiment de la charité, mais ce sont des dilemmes. Est-ce que c'est clair? Vous avez entendu? Merci. Z?
Okay. All right. So this next talk has a lot of slides, so we should move on and talk a little bit more specifically about Haiti and the international aid NGO response that followed the earthquake that happened in 2010. Okay, as I said, many times we talk about concepts in this course and they're framed more generally, but I'm really going to take a deeper dive here and look at Haiti, because in many ways it's the post-earthquake period has been the example par excellence of how international aid can have unintended consequences in a country, okay? And how the process of giving aid can be very complicated, okay? So in this talk, we're going to use a few social medicine concepts to understand the impact that international aid can have on a country. We're going to look at some common assumptions about disaster relief and how aid money flows. All right, and then we're going to look at what the reality is. And then we're hopefully going to start the process on reflecting, like, what does this all mean for us and the way that we move through the world and in our careers. Okay, so first, just a couple terms. What do I mean by international aid regime? Okay, well, I have termed this group of actors a regime because this group may end up actually having more power than the governments of the countries that they're working with. Okay, and the aid regime is actually it's much more complicated than I used to think. All right, so it involves a number of actors, donor governments, the UN and affiliated organizations, private donors, international NGOs, and then private for-profit companies. Okay. As I said, things are a lot more complicated than I used to think. All right. So, years ago, this is how I thought that the process worked. So we have our donor governments, we have the UN, we have private donors, and poor countries just receive donations from these actors, shown here in the form of an arrow. All right. You may already recognize that this was overly simplistic, and it is. The reality actually looks a bit more like this. So, in theory, the way it's supposed to work is that donor governments give funding to the UN and its affiliated organizations. They give funding to international NGOs. They may give some funding directly to the governments of recipient countries. Okay, private donors give funding to UN entities, to international NGOs. Money also goes to for-profit companies, which is something that's not often talked about. International NGOs may give money to for-profit companies, okay, even though they themselves are not a profitable organization, right? A profit-oriented organization. A lot of the money that goes through NGOs may go to businesses to get the work done, all right? And then these for-profit companies, and this dotted line here is meant to signify work. So maybe these for-profit companies or these international NGOs may do some of the work that the funding supports in a recipient country. Okay, so this is how it works in theory. In reality, this is something like this is probably more accurate, where you have you have the theory of how all this happens, but what what ends up happening is that a lot of money actually ends up flowing back to international NGOs, flowing back to donor governments, right? Flowing back to for-profit enterprises, sometimes even flowing back to private donors, right? From these recipient countries, okay? We're going to look much more specifically at this, how this all worked in Haiti in a second. But, perhaps you can already see why people might draw cartoons like this, okay? The question is, when we say that $1 billion or $2 billion is being given as aid to a country, how much of that actually reaches where it was intended to reach? All right. So I also just want to briefly revisit this idea of structural violence, which Fernando and David talked a bit about on Tuesday. Does anyone remember what structural violence refers to? How would you define structural violence?
Qui pourrait nous donner une définition de la violence structurelle? Qui pourrait partager avec nous sa compréhension de la violence structurelle?
Hopefully you all had a chance to read the Farmer article on structural violence also, which is in the folder. Okay, well, this is how Paul Farmer, I believe in the piece that you guys were assigned, describes structural violence, where he says that it's a way of describing the social arrangements that put people and groups in danger. Okay, they're structural because they're built into the political and the way that our world is organized economically, politically, right? They're part of the basic structures of the world around us, and they're violent because they cause harm to people. Okay, so put differently, it's the idea that various forces, right, can act on individuals and groups and limit their ability to act on their own behalf. Right? What are some examples of forces that might be part of structural violence that we've talked about in the course?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question one more time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are some structural forces that we've talked about that act on people and are part of structural violence?
Well, unfortunately, I had to miss Tuesday's session, but I know we've touched a bit about just in terms of housing stability that can impact an individual, in terms of, access to clean water, access to electricity, the utilities necessary to kind of survive and live comfortably and in a healthy way. Those are all structural things to consider.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Any other examples?
Nous avons discuté le racisme, le sexisme. Right now, you're kind of touching on some like neoliberal economics, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Right. So we've talked about racism, sexism. You can have discrimination based on someone's citizenship status, right? Those might be what we could call those are axes of inequity. All right, that's a definition from Dr. Kumara Jones. And along those axes, right, there can be very different access to opportunities, right? And so how that ends up manifesting is through other social and structural forces, right? Such as poverty, such as access to housing, access to a number of other resources, etc. Right? So all of these forces can together, right, in an interconnected way, act on people and really limit their ability to make choices on their own behalf. All right, and a way that I think of structural violence is that it's this destructive force that acts down the gradient of power in a society. All right. So structural violence causes violence to those without power. Any questions or other thoughts about that? Okay. So when we think about big international aid and development efforts, right, it would seem logical that the goal should be to counteract structural violence, right, to fight against the forces of structural violence rather than to add to them, right? But what we're going to look at in the case of Haiti is that quite the opposite has been true. So the first thing to understand is that aid organizations, NGOs, have had a really deep engagement in Haiti for many, many years, well before the earthquake. Okay, for decades, many different groups have been coming to Haiti, drawn by many different factors. And the result was that even before the earthquake, Haiti had the highest number of NGOs per capita in the world. So any ideas as to why that might have been the case? Why would there be so many NGOs in Haiti that it would be known as, by many, as the Republic of NGOs, even before the earthquake? What sort of conditions would need to exist for that to happen? So the article by Zaidi, which I keep coming back to, it does a very nice job of describing the history of how the international community has come to rely so heavily on NGOs, okay, as a vehicle for delivering aid. But one thing that's probably obvious is that in a country with a very strong government, right, that and a lot of resources, there will not be a need for so many NGOs, and there won't be the ability for so many NGOs to come in without much regulation and start doing work. And the fact that Haiti is so close to the United States, where the majority of NGOs come from, that Haiti is a strategically important country for the US as far as its location. And the fact that Haiti, for for most of the past decades, has had a government that has been unable to resist the interference of the U.S. and other countries around the world, are all reasons why, even before the earthquake, we had a situation where NGOs were actually providing a lot of the services in Haiti. And just to give you an idea of how much of basic social services in Haiti were run by NGOs even before the earthquake, the estimate is that 70% of healthcare and 85% of education was provided by NGOs. And this is before the earthquake happened. And so when the earthquake struck on January 12th, 2010, and it's considered by many to be the most destructive natural disaster of modern times. And in the process, killing, most say, between 200,000 and 300,000 people, 1.5 million people left homeless, and at the same time, 60% of government buildings and 80% of schools in Port-au-Prince being destroyed. When given the history, when something that destructive happened, it was not at all surprising that there would be what's known as a humanitarian invasion the following day. And to be sure, the post-earthquake response, known as the humanitarian invasion, was it did have some inspiring aspects. Over half of households in the United States donated money to in the aftermath of the earthquake to quote, help Haiti. In addition to this, with close to $2 billion pledged from U.S. households. In addition to this, another couple $2 billion were pledged by other governments for the rebuilding, and then $10 billion was raised for the reconstruction of Haiti. Okay. And the phrase that was commonly used at that time is that Haiti was going to build back better. Right? It suggested that amount of money should be enough to transform life for people in Haiti. And there was the example of a tsunami that hit Indonesia several years before, in which case billions of dollars from the international community did have a transformative effect on many areas that were struck by that disaster. And the idea was that the same would be true in Haiti. And along with this money, Haiti was immediately filled with even more NGOs. Many of these NGOs had no history in Haiti, and others of which, like the American Red Cross, really only did relief work and had no history of actually doing reconstruction work. Regardless, these hundreds of thousands of more NGOs entered Haiti after the earthquake. Along with them came massive amounts of relief supplies without a real analysis of whether or not they were needed. Right? This is within days, there were millions of water bottles and tons of food aid. Many medical teams came down to Haiti following the earthquake. Thousands of temporary shelters. We see some examples down here, and thousands of American troops also accompanied all of these other NGOs to Haiti. And yet, despite this almost unprecedented international aid response to a disaster, as of 2013, which is when this picture was taken, over 150,000 people were still living in temporary camps around Port-au-Prince. And these numbers have since gone down a lot, but as recently as the end of 2016, 60,000 people were still lacking permanent housing since the earthquake. And in addition, despite all of the billions of dollars, all of the time, all of the effort that was invested by the international community, in terms of health rankings by the WHO, Haiti continues to rank near the bottom. The average life expectancy in Haiti is 10 years less than in the Dominican Republic. And Haiti has dealt with the worst cholera epidemic of the past century. The estimates are that close to 10,000 people died, and over 10% of the population ended up being sick at some point. And it should be mentioned that the reason that we were unable to hold the course in Haiti this year is related to the underlying conditions that, number one, that made the earthquake so destructive, and number two, that really made the post-earthquake response so problematic, right? As we all know, over the last year, there have been a number of massive protests in Haiti, fueled by the worsening of economic and political conditions. And I would really encourage you guys to read the report. I've put it in the Google Drive folder. There's a really, I think it's the best report, to my knowledge, that's been written about the situation in Haiti and the causes for it. It was written by IJDH.
Sorry, Z, it's a little bit difficult to hear you.
Really?
It's a little bit difficult to hear you.
Is it scrambled or just quiet? How about now?
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, but you sound really far.
Okay. And now?
What about you guys? Do you hear Zadok clearly?
I can hear him pretty clearly, actually.
Say it again.
I can hear him pretty clearly.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll
maybe the problem on my side.
Okay.
Okay, much better.
Okay, good. So I'm just please take some time to read the report by IJDH on the causes for the protests in Haiti over the last year. It's in the Google Drive folder in both English and French. And it will talk about how the international community has played a big role in fueling the conditions that led to the protests. But for now, the question is really how, over the last 9 years, has so many billions of dollars failed to make a big difference in the living conditions in Haiti. All right. Okay, so I'm going to ask, what do you all think of this statement? Okay, that poor governance and corruption in Haiti are the main reasons why the post-earthquake reconstruction failed.
Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est à cause de la corruption des différents gouvernements qui sont passés en Haïti et causés par les différents gouvernements qui sont passés en Haïti qui a causé l'inefficacité des actions post-sismiques, ou est-ce que vous pensez qu'il y a eu d'autres causes?
Je peux dire quelque chose?
Vas-y.
Oui, je pense que en grande partie, et la corruption a beaucoup contribué à ça parce que il y a beaucoup d'argent qui ont été détournés, mais je ne pense pas que c'est uniquement cette cause-là. Il y a aussi certaines organisations qui ont fait des projets à court terme. C'est-à-dire, ils sont venus en Haïti, après le tremblement de terre, ils ont fait des actions au jour le jour, uniquement pour cette journée. Par exemple, la distribution d'eau, de nourriture, tout ça, mais ils n'ont rien fait qui pourrait y rester et pour le pays, pour les gens qui y vivent. Je suis conscient aussi que à ce moment-là, il y avait urgence et ces choses-là étaient importantes aussi, mais ils pouvaient agir dans les deux sens. Donc, faire des choses à court terme et aussi poser des actions à long terme.
Donc, d'après toi, c'est la corruption des différents gouvernements et le manque d'action visant le développement durable, c'est ça?
Oui.
Des ONG. OK.
Oui.
Quelqu'un d'autre?
En fait, je suis d'accord avec l'intervention de Dina. Parce que normalement, certes qu'en Haïti, il y a la corruption, c'est vrai. Il y a une mauvaise gouvernance. En fait, les différents gouvernements. Est-ce que vraiment viennent? Je pense que ces choses-là ne vont pas dépenser comme si sans rentrer de l'argent pour la suite. Parce que, je vais prendre un exemple. Donc, si déjà, OK, on vous dit, bon, voilà, on va vous donner ça. En retour, vous aurez donné ça. Donc, ça déjà, maintenant, donc, ça, comme si ça alimente la corruption. Parce que, il y a une sorte de, comment dire, c'est pas arrangement, je veux pas trop utiliser les mots trop graves, mais en fait, c'est que comme si, le fait que comme si ils savent que nos dirigeants parfois comme si ne pensent pas au pays, donc les ONG en profitent de quel sens, dans le sens que bon voilà, ça aussi, par exemple, si il y a 5 millions et on a envoyé 5 millions, et puis les ONG donnent 2 millions, et puis c'est comme s'ils gardent les 3 millions pour eux. Donc, quoi d'autre? Et puis, pour les programmes des ONG, les ONG n'ont pas des programmes comme si, à long terme, comme vient de dire Erline. Donc, ce sont des programmes à court terme. Donc, au fur et à mesure, maintenant, il y aura toujours des besoins, on aura toujours besoin des présence des ONG parce que c'est à court terme. Donc, certes, pour quelques mois, ça va passer, pour des années, ça va passer, mais maintenant, les autres années qui viennent, donc on a toujours les mêmes problèmes. Donc, je pense que en majeur, donc, les ONG sont responsables. Plus mauvaise gestion. Moi-même, je pense que c'est les Haïtiens qui participent à la corruption, c'est une chaîne. Donc, tout le monde participe à la corruption depuis le bailleur jusqu'aux gens qui ont à distribuer les aides.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Larissa. OK, il y a une petite nuance sur laquelle j'aimerais intervenir. Il y a des actions à court, à moyen et à long terme, n'est-ce pas? Mais ces actions peuvent avoir des portées. Et leurs portées peuvent être des actions, par exemple, des actions ponctuelles. Il peut y avoir des actions ponctuelles et des actions visant le développement durable. Est-ce que je dois élaborer un peu plus?
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
OK. Court, moyen et long terme. Ça, c'est pour les durées. Mais pour les impacts, on a tendance à parler de actions ponctuelles ou actions visant le développement durable. L'action ponctuelle, par exemple, dans une situation de crise, la grande partie des actions qui auront à être posées seront des actions ponctuelles. Par exemple, les gens vivaient dans les rues, les gens avaient besoin d'eau potable, les gens avaient besoin de nourriture. Donc, les premières aides qui vont arriver sur le terrain peuvent être des aides qui visent à résoudre ces problèmes spécifiques, ces problèmes ponctuels. Est-ce que c'est clair? Mais ces aides n'ont pas besoin d'avoir une trop longue portée. C'est-à-dire, si c'est pour la nourriture, l'eau potable, on peut avoir ça, on peut travailler sur des projets sur une semaine jusqu'à 5 mois. Dans le cadre de certains projets, on peut dire que c'est un projet à court terme. Tout dépend de l'investissement, du niveau d'investissement. Tout dépend du problème. On peut avoir, par exemple, si on prend l'image qu'on avait vue au début de la présentation, l'image du captage d'eau potable. Il y avait un captage d'eau, un captage de distribution d'eau qu'on avait fait dans une localité. Ce captage, par rapport à la manière d'exécution de la personne, visait à faire du développement durable. Donc, on voulait résoudre une situation existante dans la communauté. Mais est-ce que sa manière d'exécuter le projet a été efficace? C'est là la grande question. Donc, il faut vraiment comprendre les différents niveaux d'intervention pour pouvoir identifier les actions ponctuelles et les actions qui visent le développement durable. Est-ce que c'est plus ou moins clair?
C'est clair.
Plus ou moins pour Joy, plus ou moins pour quelqu'un d'autre. OK. Si on apporte de l'eau potable dans une situation de crise, Cette action est comment? Est une action qui vise le développement durable, le développement, ou c'est une action ponctuelle?
Une action ponctuelle?
Ok, c'est une action ponctuelle parce que ça vise à gérer une situation spécifique qui ne demande pas beaucoup d'efforts. Mais ok, si on essaie de mettre sur pied une structure qui pourrait continuellement donner de l'eau potable aux gens de la communauté, qu'est-ce que cela représente?
Ça, c'est longue durée. Ça, c'est
Okay. Une action durable.
Ouais.
Mais on peut dire que l'action est durable, mais ne vise pas le développement durable. Parce que pour que l'action vise le développement durable, elle doit également correspondre aux besoins de la communauté. Est-ce que c'est clair? Parce que lorsque vous voulez donner, lorsque vous avez un élan, vous ressentez l'élan de donner, certaines fois, vous avez tendance à ne pas tenir compte des besoins réels de la communauté sur laquelle vous allez intervenir. C'est là le rôle de ce qu'on appelle le jeu de la perception. Et c'est là encore le sens du mot partenariat. Vous devez communiquer avec la communauté afin de comprendre leur réalité et d'identifier leurs besoins réels. Vous n'allez pas agir pour la communauté, mais vous devez agir avec la communauté pour développer des projets durables. Est-ce que c'est clair? Merci, Joy. Est-ce que c'est clair pour tout le monde maintenant? Allô?
Oui, ça va, c'est clair.
Oui, c'est clair.
OK, merci beaucoup. Z.
Thank you, Carlo.
You're welcome.
So I'm conscious of the time, so I'm gonna move quickly, but we'll have some time for questions at the end. So clearly, in this picture, we have a lot of people who are very upset about how the money for Haiti was used. Who do these people think were to blame for the failures of reconstruction?
The Red
À
Cross.
partir de cette photo, ces gens sont en train de blâmer qui exactement? S'il vous plaît, regardez la photo et dites-nous qui sont ceux qui sont identifiés, qui sont ceux qui sont blâmés à cause de l'argent de la reconstruction d'Haïti. Ça passe mal, Laïssa. Laïssa.
Il y a Oxfam qui est indexé, l'UNICEF, la Croix-Rouge américaine, et je vois Catholic Relief, également Save the Children, l'UNICEF également. Ils sont indexés.
Merci beaucoup, Marc. Donc, des ONG.
Thank you. So these are this is from a protest in Britain 2 years after the earthquake. So the group of people is very angry, and they're clearly arguing that the blame is on.
Tu passes très mal, Larissa. Désolé. Si tu peux taper, ça pourrait nous aider. Merci beaucoup. Si tu peux écrire ton intervention, ça pourrait nous aider. Merci.
Okay. So we won't discuss this, but just maybe to ask a rhetorical question. Do we think that that money that goes to NGOs, it works better than money that goes to directly governments. And do we think that international experts are in a better position than local governments to decide how money should be used most effectively? Well,
est-ce que vous pensez que l'argent devait être distribué aux ONG ou directement au gouvernement? Et qui est-ce que vous pensez devrait être mieux placé pour faciliter les aides, les gouvernements qui sont sur place ou les experts internationaux? À vous.
And no, please.
Vas-y, vas-y.
Oui. Et selon moi, les gouvernements devraient être les mieux placés pour gérer les fonds parce qu'ils sont sur place, ils savent mieux ce que les gens veulent et ils connaissent mieux les besoins de la population. Mais maintenant, il faudrait des règlements, des balises pour que ces fonds ne soient pas détournés, pour que ces fonds vont directement pour les projets auxquels ils ont été alloués. Donc, si les gouvernements ont, si les gens qui gouvernent ont la conscience, je ne sais pas, s'ils peuvent vraiment gérer ces fonds, je pense qu'ils sont les mieux placés parce qu'ils sont sur place, ils peuvent mieux répondre aux besoins de la population.
Merci beaucoup, Erline. Qui d'autre? Qui d'autre?
Je voulais ajouter quelque chose.
Oui, vas-y.
Oui, et puis surtout, il y a certaines organisations qui le font vraiment pour aider les gens, mais il y a aussi des organisations qui le font pour augmenter leur capital économique, qui le font de mauvaise foi. Donc, après le tremblement de terre, j'ai entendu beaucoup de plaintes, beaucoup de personnes se plaignaient de la gestion des fonds. Donc, si les gouvernements géraient les fonds, je pense que ça aurait beaucoup plus de contrôle sur les organisations.
Carlo, can you paraphrase? I did not. I didn't understand the last part.
Okay. She said that the government should be in a better position to manage the fund because of the fact they know the reality of the community and being in a better place to help on the management. But they should have like a structure a structure to control the action of the government to not facilitate corruption.
Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit. If it's okay with everyone, if we just take like 10 extra minutes past the hour, we can.
C'est bon pour tout le monde. On va prendre environ 10 minutes extra. Est-ce que ça ne vous dérange pas? Merci beaucoup.
Okay. Thank you. So the experts would agree with the assessment that governments are in the best position to actually do the work of deciding where the money should go and to really be involved in the reconstruction process. Okay, that's been recognized for a long time. And actually in 2005, over 100 countries, including the United States, signed this declaration where they said that they were going to work along with the governments of the recipient countries and to respect their processes and preferences. Okay, and Hillary Clinton, just after the earthquake, was saying that we need to do things differently. We need to really work closely with the Haitian government. We need to respect their opinions. We need to invest in strengthening the Haitian government for the long term. All right, so let's look at the reality. So this is a graph of what the Haitian government said that its priorities were after the earthquake. So the blue line is how much money the Haitian government requested for different areas like energy, reconstruction, transport, health after the earthquake. The red is how much the donor countries said that they would give. And the green is how much the donor countries actually gave. So what we see here is that there is no category where there's a very close match between what the government of Haiti asked for and the amount that other countries said that they would give. Is that clear?
Est-ce que c'est clair pour tout le monde? Ce graphe? Ce graphe? Il y a les légendes qui pourraient vous aider à comprendre, à mieux comprendre.
The other thing that I would point out is that there's no category where the amount that was given was even close to the amount that was promised. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves, just from this, how much are international donors really respecting the preferences and priorities of the Haitian government in this process? Okay, skip this one. So who got most of the billions of dollars that were promised? Where did the money actually go? Well, this is looking at, I believe, the year after the earthquake, looking at the money that the United States government actually gave towards the Haiti reconstruction effort. And what we see, is that $120 million, so the largest amount of money, was given to the US government itself. So the US government was just giving money to the Department of Defense, to it's called the Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance, right, which is part of the US government, right? It gave money to the World Food Program, other UN agencies. It gave money to Chemonix, that's a for-profit company, okay, that does international development work. And then it gave millions of dollars to World Vision, Catholic Relief Services, some of the big NGOs, okay? And this follows the pattern that the US typically follows, called tide aid, right? The US is the worst in the world at this. And what tide aid is, it's the percentage of money that is spent on aid that just goes back to the donor country's economy. So what 93% means is that for every dollar that the United States gives towards Haiti, 93 cents ends up just coming back to the United States. Okay, we see that this is very different than how some other countries in the world give, but this has historically been the United States pattern. Okay, so what's the reality about the $16 billion that were supposedly given to fund reconstruction in Haiti? Well, $1 billion was just in the form of debt relief. All right, so that's money that Haiti owed the international community. $4 billion was promised for the future. Okay, $5.5 billion went to NGOs, to the UN affiliates, etc. All right, and then that only left $5.5 billion, and only half of that was ever given. All right, I will say the IHRC or CERH, this was a commission that was supposed to work like a similar commission in Indonesia after their tsunami, where international NGOs and organizations work together closely with the government to identify the priorities of the reconstruction effort. The problem here was that in Indonesia, the commission was closely aligned with the priorities of the government because the central government was much stronger, right? But with a relatively, the Haitian government having relatively little voice in the post-earthquake process, this was bound to be ineffective. So after 18 months, this commission actually went away, and there was essentially no supervision over where the funding went. All right. So what was the final outcome after the first 2 years of 2 years after the earthquake? Well, of all the money that was given, towards Haiti, we see that 36% just went back to the donor governments to pay for their military involvement, to pay for their government, to pay for other government expenses. We see that 26% went to international NGOs, contractors, so for-profit companies, other state actors. We see that another 26% went to UN agencies, other NGOs. 6% was in kind, which means in the form of goods. 5% of the funding went to the Red Cross, okay? And this tiny little sliver here, 1%, this is actually what went to the government of Haiti, okay? So I would just raise the question, how can the corruption of the Haitian government be the issue when it's not even getting any money, right? So, you know, we see that corruption, you know, is certainly a big part of the answer, but whose corruption is it? Okay.
J'espère que les étudiants haïtiens ont bien compris, parce que au début, on avait posé la question qui était responsable, et tout le monde acculait le gouvernement haïtien. Donc, et que le gouvernement haïtien était corrompu, qu'on ne pouvait pas leur faire confiance. Bien sûr qu'il y a de la corruption, mais cette corruption est faite par qui? Qui est-ce qui est corrompu par rapport au fait relaté dans la présentation de Zadok? Qui est corrompu? Est-ce le gouvernement haïtien ou d'autres structures internationales?
Maybe I'll continue because I have something more to say on corruption. I just to finish the story of the NGOs, because we saw that over 50% of the funding ended up going to actors like international NGOs, right? what happened to all that money? Well, in the case of the Red Cross, where a full 5% of money went, what we see is that over 40% of the funding went to pay salaries, okay, and overhead, so other expenses for the Red Cross, and that a lot of the rest of the money that went to other organizations, okay, which paid their own salaries and took their own overhead. And the clear conclusion from reports that have been done on the Red Cross is that it had no idea how to actually do the work that it was raising money for. Okay, so let's skip this. Let's see. So I just want to look at a couple of realities, because what we what we often see in international disaster responses is that what are the first things that we see coming into the country besides NGOs and workers? We see a lot of bottles of water and food, right? In the case of Haiti, there were many U.S. troops, as we saw, because they said they were going to maintain order. And the assumption by many people is that after a disaster, there is necessarily going to be a lack of order, that there's necessarily going to be shortages of water and food. But the reality, when you actually look at how post-disaster periods have actually played out in different countries, is that historically, the period after disaster tends to be a very stable time. That's very uncommon to have unrest in a society after a natural disaster. And certainly in the case of Haiti, the reality was that overall, that there was never an acute food shortage more than usual. Okay. There was also not a shortage of bottled water. I'm sorry, a shortage of drinkable water compared to the usual reality overall. And so what's the problem with just sending many thousands of bottles of water into Haiti, sending large amounts of food aid without assessing the situation? What might be some of the long-term unintended consequences of this? Because time is short, I'll just answer that that the U.S. has a long history of sending tons and tons of food, particularly rice, to Haiti. And this has had a devastating effect on Haiti's ability, on Haitians' ability to grow and sell rice. So it's been a big part of the way that the agriculture in Haiti has been devastated. As far as bottled water, this is a classic example of a charity response without any social justice analysis, right? The idea is that by giving all these bottles of bottled water, that you're doing something good, but there was no thinking about how do we strengthen Haiti's water infrastructure, right? Some actual attention to that aspect of it would have gone a long way when it came to preventing a cholera epidemic, right? So we see these wasted opportunities to do that sort of analysis and the consequences of that. And just going back to this this idea of corruption. So, it's certainly true that the Haitian government deals with corruption. The IJDH report that I put in the folder, it talks about how the Martelly and Moïse regimes have involved a lot of corruption, right? But what does corruption mean? I mean, in the U.S. government, we see we see corruption functioning all the time, right? Corruption is part of every government around the world, to greater or lesser extents. And the problem is that the way that there are world measures of corruption, and they are based on how corrupt people think a country is, right? So that this may have very little to do with the reality. People base their perspectives on what has been true historically more than the facts, all right? And as we see clearly in this situation, any corruption of the Haitian government was not the issue, right? Because no money was actually flowing through them in the post-earthquake period. So, certainly corruption was a problem, but it wasn't the corruption of the Haitian government in that case, right? It's the corruption of the international system. Okay. I'll skip this. I will just say that, to bring it back to this idea of structural violence at the end, we talked about how ideally the international aid regime would be working against structural violence, right? Working to fight against those forces. But what we end up with, unfortunately, when the focus of a response is on food aid, when so much of the money is flowing back to the donor government, right? What this does ultimately is it just increases differences in power, right? And it just deepens the effects of the forces that comprise structural violence. Okay. So just to conclude, we've seen how Haiti after the earthquake is an example of how, despite what we know makes aid effective, right? We have known for many years that working with the government of recipient countries is the way to most effectively give aid. The reality, and certainly often the reality, and certainly the reality in Haiti, is that the government was completely excluded from the development process, which just deepened the differential in power, right? And we talked a little bit about how some of the basic assumptions that typically drive international responses have problems with them. Okay, so just on a concluding note, because unfortunately this is the last planned time we have together for now, I just want to bring it back to the idea of praxis and to leave you with the sort of thinking about what does this all mean for us. Certainly usually when I give this lecture, people are feeling a lot of anger and frustration, which I feel also. The question is, what do we do with those feelings? And I like this way of conceptualizing the different ways that a health professional might be involved in the lives of their patients. Okay. I tried to translate into French here using Google Translate, so I hope it is okay. But there's this idea that a healthcare provider can participate in agency on behalf of their patients, or can participate in activism. Right? Agency is the idea that you are helping your individual patient to navigate the system. All right, and the focus is really on downstream issues. Right, we're helping them, secure access to social services, to various forms of support. Right, it's using the system that's already there and doing your best to help your patient navigate it. Activism, meanwhile, is that it's focused more on the community, on an entire population. It's focused on changing the system. The focus is on upstream, right? It's on fighting against the forces of gender-based discrimination, of racism, of xenophobia, of things like that. And so examples of that are really involve engaging in direct political action, and focusing on the structural and the social determinants of health. Okay, and really thinking about larger questions of access. So, you know, it probably makes sense that, you know, activism is really goes very closely with a social justice approach. Any questions about this? It's a point to consider as we conclude. So just, if not, just a couple things I want to conclude with. Number one is I love this quote. I think it summarizes the role of the healthcare professional as we see it very well. That the place of medicine is in the stream of life, not on the banks. Okay. The idea is that we have a responsibility to really engage in not only in the lives of our patients, but in the fight against the forces that shape their lives. Sorry. So how might we do that? Well, one way that we want to offer to all of you is to participate in the Campaign Against Racism. This is an initiative that was started by the Social Medicine Consortium, which Equal Health is part of. And we now have 250 members of the campaign in 22 chapters in 10 different countries. You can go to this website here to find more information about it. Unfortunately, I think the website is only in English, but you can also email Michelle Morse at this address here if you would like to learn more about the campaign and get involved. Thank you all so much. I know we're past time. I appreciate your attention and your participation. I'm very sorry about my lack of French, but hopefully this is still useful and can just be the beginning of you know, a lifelong process of really using these analytical tools and deepening our understanding. So any comments before we finish?
Thank you, Zedek. And I want to say thank you to everyone. Merci d'avoir été avec nous. Et s'il y a plus de questions pour Zadok, je tiens à vous dire que par rapport au deuxième point, le quart, nous avons un chapitre en Haïti. Si vous souhaitez intégrer le chapitre en Haïti, vous pouvez me contacter directement et on pourra faire les suivis. Et pour ceux qui sont à l'extérieur, vous pouvez contacter Michel Morse ou aller sur le lien qui est sur l'écran. Il y a une autre chose que je voulais, sur laquelle je voulais m'entretenir avec vous. Nous souhaitons organiser une retraite sur la médecine sociale. Bon, malheureusement, je ne saurais vous demander de rentrer en Haïti que pour la retraite. Mais pour ceux qui sont déjà en Haïti, nous essayons de faire la retraite durant la deuxième semaine du mois d'août. Donc, ce serait un moment d'effectuer des échanges liés à la médecine sociale en compagnie de l'association des alumni de médecine sociale en Haïti, du SMA. Élise, je pense que tu avais rencontré des membres de l'association SMA, Stacy, Yuri. Ce sont les cofondateurs de SMA et on va organiser bientôt une retraite, un espace de réflexion, d'échange entre les membres, les alumni du cours de médecine sociale des différentes promotions afin de donner plus de vie au mouvement de la médecine sociale en Haïti.
Okay.
Donc, si vous êtes intéressé, probablement on pourrait se connecter via Internet durant la retraite et on pourrait rester en contact pour avoir plus d'informations. OK?
Okay.
Pas de
Thank
problème.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Merci beaucoup, Zadok, et à bientôt pour l'enquête. On espère plus ou moins améliorer l'expérience et on espère recevoir vos feedbacks. Merci beaucoup tout le monde et à très bientôt. Bonne soirée.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous. Ça a été un plaisir. Plaisir de vous rencontrer virtuellement, Joy, virtuellement pour d'autres personnes. Et Élise, un plaisir de te revoir. À très bientôt. Hein. Bye bye tout le monde. Les étudiants haïtiens, on reste en contact pour planifier la retraite. Bye bye. Bonne soirée. Thank you, Z.